I have what I think of their image today, and then I have what I thought of their image back then. Back then, very few people knew how to create a look. Dolly Parton had created a look. I think Chrissy Snow had created a look. The Carpenters, I don't think they created their look. It was the couple next door. Because I always got the feeling that they weren't going after fame. I think, to me, being around Karen, I found fame, and maybe I'm wrong, that she was uncomfortable with it. I embraced it. I liked it. I saw the power of fame, that not only was it fun, but you could use it for the better good if you use fame correctly rather than narcissistically. I think it put her in a light that she wasn't craving in any way. She made beautiful sounds, beautiful music. And yet their music was so popular, you had to put them on camera. And then they were likable. How could you not like those two? They didn't have a bad bone in their bodies. They never said anything that would be negative or that anyone would want to challenge. They were just, a brother and sister act. They're good boys and girls who happen to be enormously talented.
Their image was two goody two-shoes, which is interesting because if they had been left to their own devices, they might have found some of their grit or their stuff.
I can't get inside either of their heads, but I never felt myself that they were comfortable with that that's not what they were going after. I also picked up on her, there's something sad about Karen. And in the time, and I didn't spend a lot of time with her, but the time I spent with her, there was something sad. I was too young, and I wasn't astute enough then to be able to peel it away, the human condition. I think when you don't eat, there's some, that usually anorexia is a form of self-loathing. And I don't know and can't know what that might have been. But I do remember when I was with her, and I mean this with all due respect, but she was so painfully thin that her teeth looked too big for her face. When you lose that much weight, and she didn't eat that whole time that I worked with her. I never saw her eat a morsel of food. And I don't know if there was any abuse in her background or anything. Maybe it was just all about, I can't handle this fame. I just want to make music. People who are genius musicians are, I guess you'd say, autodidactic. That's all she wanted to be.
I showed up for the first fitting, some warehouse. I don't know where it was, might have been Downey, to meet the wardrobe team for the first time. And it was a big empty warehouse, and there were racks and racks of clothes. And I don't know if I knew beforehand, but I found out that day that they were all Karen's. They had saved her entire wardrobe. And before the fitting started, the team went out to go get something. So I was left alone with the clothes, and I started to peruse them, and I was just going through all of them and noticing that, the performance costumes versus her everyday wear. And I think they were in order of years. I think they were in chronological order. And I was fascinated and kind of horrified by the change in size, how they went from being larger than what I could fit into and to being so tiny. Well, what happens with anorexia is you feel out of control. And perhaps people have told you you're overweight, or you're pudgy, or you don't have a nice figure, or whatever. And it doesn't matter if that's real or not, that's true to you. So you go on the diet, and you lose some weight, and you start getting it to people like, I notice you look a little, and the attention feels good, right? The attention feels nice. And then you get to a weight where you're getting the attention like, oh, wow, what have you been doing? Getting a lot, oh, you look great. So that's the validation. And then you can carry on, and then you're getting too thin, and people are like, whoa, what's going on? You're getting too thin. You're getting a lot of attention now. that feels really good too. And then the progression of the disease is that you start feeling very empowered, that you can control something as biologically basic as hunger. You know, we have a few basic things that are just primal, but it's going to the bathroom, feeling hungry and feeding ourselves, falling asleep when we're exhausted, sneezing. We don't have control over those things, but the anorexic does. And this is where then the psychology of it starts getting really interesting and insidious, and the brain chemistry starts to change, because through starvation and this empowerment, they become linked. So it's like, yeah, you have to eat. I don't. You get in pain. You get in enough pain and you have to eat. I don't. And that's where the illness becomes deadly. So for Karen, she got a lot of attention that she was looking so great, and it was pretty clear through her shape and the weight she lost and that progression that the progression wasn't arrested early enough, because people didn't realize she was hiding it, which is also normal, but people didn't realize it was a deadly disorder back then the way you would now, and the family was in denial about getting her help. And they never gave themselves permission to have stuff happen. Go up on a lyric, hit a note off pitch, trip over the mic. Shit happens when you perform live. It's never perfect. But if you're emotionally present, your audience goes on this ride with you and can love it. They don't, sometimes, you could crack on a note because you're crying and singing the lyric, and the audience will love you for it. But they didn't allow themselves for that kind of human performance, right? Everything's perfect.
The great thing about recording is it's always going to be here, and no one has to remember anything other than her beautiful voice. And what I find myself sad, because we grow and evolve as human beings, who I was then is not who I am today, and what I knew then, I wish I knew then what I know today. Imagine who she could have evolved into, because all the things that gave her such angst wouldn't be pertinent today. That's the great thing about aging. You spend a lot of time with yourself by the time you go from decade to decade, and you come to peace with yourself, and you come to see yourself as your own uniqueness. But when you're young, it's hard. And she was young. I think when I worked with her, she was 30. And yet, who knew she was only going to have another couple of years?